I welcome you all back and thank you for your patience when we got the tech going. Our presenter this morning is Vidushi Amritha Murali, one of the front-ranking musicians of today, who has been performing in the Music Academy senior slot for several years now. Amrita will be speaking and demonstrating the changing nature of ragas across compositional forms. 45 minutes from now, Amrita.
Namaskaram. First of all, I would like to thank the President, Shri N. Murali, Shri V. Shri Ram, the committee members of the Music Academy, and the Sangeeta Kalanidhi designate, Shri T. M. Krishna Anna, for giving me this opportunity to present this lecture today. The topic for today is Raga's changing nature across compositional forms. Thanks to the duration being a little short, as requested by Krishna Anna, I have decided to restrict this presentation to practicing compositional forms and also will not go into the history of ragas as such. This will be focused mainly on the compositional forms that we are taught, we present today. So ranging from the gitams, varnams, Svarajatis, Kritis, Padams, javalis to the Tillana. We all know that Raga is all-pervasive. Raga is the fulcrum of anything that we sing today, and definitely the compositional form is replete with raga. But does the raga's form, nature, contours, phrasings, perspective, aesthetic change because of the compositional form? That will be an analysis or an observation that we will be doing today. It is not necessary that raga has to change completely because of the compositional form. The basic gamut of the raga or the basic tenets of the raga might be intact, but the way it is approached or the aesthetic might differ from form to form. So we will begin with the compositional form, the gitam. This is generally the first compositional form that is taught to a student of music. So what is the salient feature of this compositional form, and how does the raga come to light in this form? Basically, this is a short composition. The entire gamut of the raga is encapsulated in this short composition. The structure is very tight in the sense there is a swara for every beat. So it does not allow for the note to be elongated more than a very little duration, basically, because the spacing between the notes is generally lesser in a gitam. So the elongation is not possible. Also, again, there are no sangatis. You find that the gitam structure, I'm not talking about the Lakshana Gitas, I'm talking about the Gitas that are taught to us. The structure is either there is a refrain that there are 2 or 3 paras, 2 or 3 stanzas that go back to the refrain, or there are just 3 stanzas of similar melody. That's how the Gitam is generally structured. So what happens to the raga in a Gitam like this? So today, for an example, I would like to take the Gitam Parvati Janani of Sri Syama Sastri in the Raga Bhairavi, in the Tala Khanda Matya. Also, I would like to restrict this presentation to a few ragas because it's not possible to talk about multiple ragas and quote examples from all of them. So this is not an exhaustive session by any means, but whatever is possible within this time frame, I would like to cover. So in this gitam, like I mentioned, that is usually the swara and the sahitya go together with very few karvais. Parvati Janani Bhavani Shri Raja Rajeshwari Parvati Janani Bhavani Shri Raja Rajeshwari. So it starts in the Tarasthai Shadjam. Parvati Janani Bhavani Shri Raja Rajeshwari. So there is hardly any gap between the notes. Sarvaloka Palini Manini Devi Nirajakshi Parama Pavani Kamakshi Nirajakshi Parama Pavani Kamakshi Niraljani Mavamba. So this is one stanza from the Gitam. The other two stanzas, the melody replicates itself. So if you find, it starts on the Tarasthai Shadjam, extends all the way up to Mandrasthai Panchamam. And you find phrasings like Sarvalokapa, Sarigani, Saripa, Dani, Sari, Mapa, Dani, Sari. So not necessarily a straightforward conception of the raga. And also, when we say that there is no space between the notes, that doesn't mean we eschew the anuswarams as such. Nirajakshi para mapavani kamakshi. So, Niraja Nidapamagari. It's actually very beautiful phrasing, but Nidapamagarin Pana Bhairavi will not come to life. Nirajakshi para mapavani. Again, para mapa. You see a jaru from sa to pa here. You see a jaru from re to pa in the Tarasthai. This is all in just 2 lines actually. So this gives you so much Bhairavi in just 2 lines. And of course the melody repeats itself. So like when we talk about Kamala Jadana Vimala Sunayana Karivarada Karuna Bude Karuna Salade. So again you find that the Sahitya and the note kind of go together. There is no space for elongation here. And the melody repeats itself. No Sangatis. So this is basically how the raga is encapsulated in a Gitam. There are many more examples. This is just a bird's eye view into this form. I took this Gitam because it's a little rare and also the Talam is also slightly difficult. We come to the next compositional form, the Varnams. The Varnams are a huge source of learning. You have the Tana Varnams, you have the Pada Varnams. The Tana Varnam structure is different from that of a Pada Varnam. We find that in a Tana Varnam, in general, the basic requirement is that every note needs to be accentuated. We don't sing like that in a Kriti, but in a Varnam, every note has to be heard. And the Sahitya is elongated. The Raga takes precedence, Raga takes importance there. So the Sahitya takes a slight backseat. Actually, if we try saying the Sahitya for a Varnam, somebody says, what is the Sahitya of the Anupali? It's very hard to say it because we never used to saying it together. So the Raga takes prime importance there. So how is a Varnam structured? We have many beautiful Varnams. We find that in Varnams you also have some, in the form, some rare phrasings. Also, lot of patterns are showcased. You find that the raga is also approached as patterns in a Varnam. So you generally in a Kriti or the other forms, which we will see later, you don't find so many patterns. But in the Varnam especially, it is, the patterns take a lot of importance. Sometimes the patterns lead back to a note. Sometimes they lead back to a phrase. Sometimes they lead back, sometimes they change within a particular swaram itself. So we will see examples of all that now. We will first take the magnum opus Viriboni Varnam of Pachimiram Adiyappaya. Unfortunately, we don't sing the Varnam in entirety today. There is one more swaram, the third swaram before the last one, and also a passage which leads back to the second line of the Anupallavi and ending in Viriboni. So, again, the Varnam begins, I can say that there are a lot of phrasings in the Madras Thai. You find a lot of janta phrases, and then also phrasings like Nidama Gariga, Nidama Gari is also seen. And you find that the charanam of the Varnam begins on the Madhyamam. The Madhyamam seems to have been a very, very alluring point for beginning charanams in not just Varnams but also in Kritis. You find that a lot of Kritis also, the charanam begins in Madhyamam and Panchamam. So again, in this Varnam, the charanam begins on the Madhyamam. I will sing the swaram that is not often heard. Padani sari gama gari sani da pa ma gari sani da pa ma padani sari gama ni sari gama pada pa ma ni da ma ga gari sari ni da ni sari gama pa. It's the first avartanam. Begins padani sari gama gari sa ni da pa ma gari sa ni da pa ma pada ni sari ga ma ni sari ga ma pada pa ma ni da ma ga gari sari ni da ni sari ga ma pa ni sa ma gari sa pa ma gari sa da pa ma gari ni da pa ma gari sa sa ni da pa ma gari sa ri ga ma pa da ma pa da ni sa ri ni gari ni da ma ga ma pa da ni sa. Again a rare phrase. Ni gari ni da ma. So, ni da ma ga gari sa, we saw on the first line. Ni gari, that is Shadja Varja and Panchma Varja. Ni gari ni da ma ga ma pa da ni sa. Ni da pa ma gari sa. Ri ga ma pa da ni sa ri ga ma gari sa ni da da. Ma gari ni da ni pa da ma gari ga ni sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ri ni sa pa da ma pa sa ma gari ga chiru. So this was completely unexpected. This phrasing completely changes the flavor of what was sung before that. So also you find there's a repetitive melody also. Ri ga ma pa da ni sa ri in both lines. Again, ni da pa ma ga ri sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ri ga ma ga ri sa ni da da janta dala ma ga ri ni da ni pa da ma ga ri ga. So I'm singing it in this Kala Pramanam. So we rush through the Charanam of the Varnam. So a lot of these nuances are lost there because there's no room to sing these Anuswarams in totality. So that's why again Raga changes thanks to Kala Pramanam also. It's a very pertinent observation because when we sing a Raga faster, we can somehow, eschew certain Anuswaras, the Raga will still come to light. But when we sing it in a slower Kala Pramana, everything has to be filled. If you don't fill those Anuswarams, the Raga will be lost there. And this is an example of some rare phrasings that are there in this Varnam. And also, I would like to mention a Varnam called Vanita Ninne Kori. The composer is unknown. Thiruvaru Ramaswamy Pillai. Thank you, Shivan. So, the beginning of the Varnam is interesting. Vanita Rima Rima Garinam. Generally, we beat construe Rima Gari as Mukhari, or it is thanks to the boxing of the Arohana Varana structures, we tend to think that this is a wrong phrase, but that's how the Varnam starts. Later on, you can find an example in Tyagaraja Swami's Kriti also. Upacharamu Jeseva. So, Rima Gari Vanita Nin. Again, Jante, like even in the Viriboni Varnam, ma pa pa da da ni ni pa 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 da 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 ni 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 sa sa ri. Not just Jantai 3 times. And the Charanam, there is an interesting Swaram in this Varnam. Again, this Charanam begins on the Madhyamam. Ma ni da gu na sandra ma ni da gu na sandra ga ma ga ga ma ga ga ma ma ga ga ri ri sa ni sa ri ga ma ga pa ga ri ga ma ga ri ga ri sa sa ni ga ri ga ma ga pa pa ma ga ri ga ma. So this entire Swaram is only with the notes ri ga ma pa. So ga ma ga ga ma ga ga ma ma ga ga ri ri sa ni sa ga ga ri ri sa ni sa ri ga ma ga ri ga ma pa ga ri ga ma ga ri sa sa ni ga ri ga ma ga pa pa ma ga ri ga ma. Going on to the extremely charming Mohamana Varnam. Again, Charanam begins on the Madhyamam. So I spoke about patterns and notes leading back to a swara, notes leading back to a phrase. All are there in this particular Varnam in the Charanam. I'll just sing the swarams. Ma ma pa ma ma ga ri ga ga ma ga ga ri sa ri ri ga ri ri sa ni sa ni da ni sa ri ga ma. This is the first. So here it's a pattern. It doesn't lead back to the same swaram. Ma ma pa ma ma ga ri ga ga ma ga ga ri sa ri ri ga ri ri sa ni sa ni da ni sa ri ga ma. Pa ni da da pa ma ga ri ga ma pa da ma pa ga ma ga ri sa pa da ni sa ri ga ma pa ni da pa ma ga ri sa ri ga ma. So the focal point is pa here, but when it ends, when it leads back to ma, it is very beautiful. The next swaram, here the refrain is da pa. So everything will go to da pa ma ga ri sa ri ga ma pa da pa ma ga ma ga ri sa ni da pa da ni sa ri ga ma pa da pa ri ga ma pa da ni pa da ma da pa da ni sa ni da da pa ma da pa da ni sa ri ni re sa ni da pa ga ri sa ni re ni da pa ma pa da ri ga ma pa da ni da pa ma ga ri ga ma sa ri ga ma. So all notes leading back to da pa. It's an interesting um, Gama, Sari. Yeah, true. Also, talking about the structure of varnams, like when we sing a varnam, vi, bo, o, ni, ne, ko, ri, so every note has to be accentuated. You can't, it is not like a flowing moment. I don't know, I'm not able to sing it without it, but I'll try. Vi, bo, ni, ne. So it is not, see, the structure doesn't allow it. Basically, that shows that the raga is completely taken over by the compositional forms. Important factor of the compositional form. The raga is governed by that. So we cannot sing it any differently. But in a Padavarnam, you find, today for paucity of time, I'm not talking about the Swarajati. We will speak about Syama Sastri Svarajatis, but not the other form of Swarajati that we know, because the structuring is kind of similar. There is a Pallavi, Anupallavi, there is a Muktai Swaram, Sahityam, and a Charanam, and multiple Swara Sahityams in a Padavarnam, and the Swarajati is also kind of similar. So I'm taking the Padavarnams as reference. In the Padavarnam, you find that the Pallavi, Anupallavi allows for some Sangatis. It is not strict like a Kirtane. I mean, it's not strict like a Varnam where it is more flowing, the Pallavi and Anupallavi structures. So it is slightly different from the Tana Varnam as such. And I would like to sing one more example from a Varnam of Ponnaya Pillai. This is not the quartet Varnam, the other Ponnaya Pillai, where again he is also given an example of using the pa as a point to go back, and another swaram where the pattern changes in between the swaram itself. It starts one way and it goes on to another pattern. Again, charanam starts on madhyamam. It's in Khanda Atatala Varnam. The name of the Varnam is Togai Mamayil Anaya Toriye. Pada pa magari sa riga ma pada ma pag. Pada pa magari sa riga ma pa da ma pa ga ma ga riga ma pa ni da pa ga riga ma pa da pa ma ga ga ri sa sa ni da pa da ni sa riga ma pa da pa da ni sa ni da pa ma pa da pa da ni sa pa ni da pa ma pa da ni sa ri sa sa ni da ma pa ga ri sa ri ni sa pa da ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri ga kunji dum. So the next swaram, da da pa ma ga ma ma ga ri ga ri sa ri sa ni da ni sa ga ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma pa da ga ri ni da pa ma pa da ni sa pa da ma pa da ri sa ni da pa ma ga ma pa da 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 pa ma ga ma ga ri ga ri sa ri sa ni da ni sa ga ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma pa da ga ri ni da pa ma pa da ni sa pa da pa ma pa da ri sa ni da pa ma pa da ni sa ri sa ni da pa ga ri sa ri ga kun. So that pa ma pa da seems to have been seemed a little interesting, and also da da pa ma ga ma ga ri ga ri sa ri. So the initial pattern is different. So then it moves on to taking on the pada as the point of reference. Moving on to these are the two swarams that I just sang from the Varnam. Also taking the Varnam Inta Chalamu as a reference, we will listen to this is the original the Telugu notation, and from the Pallavi Swara Kalpavali I've marked the points that today we don't sing all of it like how it is here. I'll play a recording of Srimati Veena Dhanammal playing these two lines of this Varnam. Yeah, so we find Panta Dani Sari Sam Gari Gama Gamari Pamari Risa Sa Da Pasani Dani Sarin Dhanama Mavashirka Dani Sari Risa Ni Da Padama. So Dama Gari Gama Pada Pasa Pada Pa Ni Da Pa Ma Gari Gama Pa is what she has played here. It is Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Gari Gama Pa. So she has beautifully showcased both the nishadams here in this just as one line. But today Panta Abdin Padra Varakamum irukku. Panta the Danisa and also the previous slide that which one? Kaishiki Nishadam. Yeah. Both Dani Sari Risa Ni Da Pa Padir Vashir. Anam first Danisa is Kakli Nishadam. Yeah. And also Sani Da Pa Sani Da Sa Sa or Dani Sa Sa Ni is almost Sa there. So that these are phrasings that which are very important. We tend to think that it is not it is not right or maybe change it, but these are very important phrasings. Another example, so before that, again I would like to sing a couple of swarams from Syama Sastri Varnam. Ga ma pa da pa sa ni da da pa sa Gari sa ni da pa ma ga ma ri ga ma pa ma pa da ni da pa ma gari sa gari ga ma pa ma pa par sa gari ga ma pa ma par ma pa va ni. Also in the last swaram sa ma pa da pa sa ni re sa gari ga ma gari sa ni da pa da pa sa ni da pa re sa ni da pa gari sa ni da pa da ma gari sa gari ga ma pa da ma ga ma ri sa gari ga ma pa da ma gari sa ga gari ma ga pa ma da pa sa ni re sa ma gari sa ni da pa. So sa ma pa da pa sa ni re sa gari ga ma gari sa ni da pa da pa sa ni da pa re sa ni da pa gari sa ni da pa da ma gari sa the matching or a reflection of the phrase gari sa ni da pa da ma gari sa gari ga ma pa da ma pa ga ma ri sa gari. Again I thought it was in pa ma da ma pa ga ma ri sa gari ga ma pa da pa ma gari sa ga. So again interesting phrasings here. And also we find that generally in the third swaram or the third or fourth swaram there is a swaram without a karve in a varnam. So that I feel sometimes eschews all eschews kramam in a way. It doesn't completely comply with the kramam of a raga. Ma ga ma pa da ma da pa ma ga ri ga ma pa sa pa ma ga ri pa ma ga ri sa ni da ri sa ni ga ri sa ma ga ri pa ma ga da pa sa ni da ri sa ma ga ri sa ri ni re sa pa da ma da pa ga ma ri ga ma pa. So the raga is extremely flowing, but no carvais, but still the phrasings, if you actually dissect each and every segment, it is very beautiful. You can find some rare usages also. In this particular Varnam, Padavarnam of Subbarama Dikshitar, the structure is interesting because generally the charanam, there is a charanam refrain line, all swarams go back to the same line. In this Varnam, the refrain line is different with every swaram. And also, I'll just play a recording of Sri Mushri Subramaniar singing just couple of swarams. You find maybe a hint of a Sadharana Gandharam there in the... You find this swaram leads back. In the Shri Puramunaradan, there's a small hint of the Sadharana Gandharam that you hear. This swaram leads back to Shri Puramuna. The previous swaram led back to a different line, Varamu. So this is an interesting the way. So the raga also changes accordingly, like because the refrain line is different now each and every time. So also like in varnams, generally you find that there have been, for instance, the in Bilahari, the varnam that the charanam start nin ne kori yunna nu nin ni, the charanam ஆரம்பிக்கிறது. So we don't sing nisa obviously today, but then the charanam starting itself is on the nishadam. Also, I would like to mention one swaram here. Seems like a Western influence also in the last swaram of the raga. Padarisa padapamaga riga sari sanida pasa rinidaga pamagarida sanida pari nisadani pa sa 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 pa 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 dani pa magari rigada magari sani padani sa pa pa sa riga magari sanida pa magari sa riga padanin. So this is similar to also Rara Venu, you find such swara patterns, but I thought it is interesting. Rini daga pamagarida, very interesting phrasings. We'll move on to the Svarajatis of Syama Sastri. These Svarajatis are completely different from the Svarajatis I mentioned earlier. So in all the three compositions, there is a Pallavi, and then there are Swara Sahityams leading back to the Pallavi. So they are a whole session in entirety, but I'll just touch upon some salient points here. See, the Bhairavi Varnam and Bhairavi Swarajati and the Yadukla Kambhoji Swarajati are in the Arohana Krama, as we all know. So I find that it gives a visual picture of, you're developing the raga stage by stage. It teaches you how to handle the notes in every region of the raga. So especially in the Shadja, how long do you move up. And then there is a very beautiful progression. And interestingly, the swaram on the Devatam does not carry the Chatushruti Devatam. Today we sing Bhairavi as Gari Gama Padani Sa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Gari Sa. But in the ascent, Shuddha Devatam should have been there. But probably in his, yes, we will come to that parampara also when we speak about Kritis. So you find that the swaram on Devatam does not carry the Chatushruti Devatam at all. And also in the Yadukala Kamhoji Swarajati, you don't find the phrasing na na abdin, or phrase we sing all the time in Yadukala Kamhoji, that doesn't appear in the Swarajati. Again, there is no room for Sangatis. The Pallavi structure is pretty much tight. Maybe we sing a couple in Rave, but apart from that, we don't find any room for Sangatis here. And also, interestingly, Syama Sastri has shown us the way, or shown us the path. Today we sing so many calculations, poruttams. How do we not sacrifice raga when we do it? Riga sa sa ri ni sa ra da ma ni da ma ga ga ri ma ga ri ni ga ri sa ra. Very beautiful patterns. Of course, in the Bhairavi Swarajati also you find a lot of patterns. We saw it in detail a couple of days back. Ni sa ri ga ma pa sa ri ga ma pa da ma pa ga ri ga ma. I find that turn of coming back down and going very, very alluring, because ni sa ri ga ma, our normal mind will think ni sa ri ga ma pa da ri ga ma pa da ni is what naturally we will think. Ma pa ga ri ga ma pa da ni sa ri ga ma ga ri sa ni da pa ga ri sa ni da pa ga ri ka. This has to be one of the best lines. It tells us that you need not necessarily follow krama. Gari sa ni da pa ma gari ka. No paada venda. Gari sa ni da pa gari ka. The raga comes to life in entirety, in just this one beautiful phrase. So, and also in Yadukala Kamhoji Swarajati, he teaches us how to finish. If you have to lead back to a line, how do you lead back to it in different ways? So the raga again is showcased in, even in that Swarajati you find patterns, the finishings are different. So this is just a gist of the form of Syama Shastri Svarajatis. The structure of the Kriti, how does it showcase a raga? The Kriti in general gives room for the raga to be showcased in a more flowing manner. Like you don't have to spell out every note, in the sense accentuate every swara. Like we sang in the Varnam. Every note need not be accentuated here. And also, Kritis, there are different kinds of Kritis. The Chauka Kala Kritis give a different feel. The Madhyama Kala Kritis give a different feel of the raga. Again, the Kala Pramana determines the flavor of the raga, or the contours the raga takes. And also, the Sangatis that we sing today also give us a progression in the raga. The raga develops. And it is very interesting, but you find that in Dikshitar's Kritis, you don't find this kind of a development. The melody is a little unintuitive. There is no room for too many sangatis as such. And also the development is not like a logical progression many times. So there we see that the raga takes different colors. For instance, if I have to, in Begada, difference between a Bhaktuni Charitramu and a Nivera Kula Dhanamu. For instance, Bhaktuni Charitramu Vinave, Bhaktuni Charitramu Vinave, Bhaktuni Chari Itramu Vinave, Manasa Sita Rama, Bhaktuni Chari Itramu. The Charanam Rajasatama Gunamulukaradu Adiga Kanu Yajamunanu Raledana Radu Raja Yoga Margamu Nichitamuraju Chutavidu Vagaraju. So we find that Rajasatama Gunamulukaradu Adiga Kanu Yajamunanu Raledana Radu. So the swaras are moving fast. The again the room for gamakas is less. So you find like it's a lilting kind of progression of the raga. Whereas if you have to sing a kriti like Nivera Kula Dhanamu, for instance. Nivera Kula Dhanamu Santatamu Nivera Kula Dhanamu Santatamu Nivera Kula Dhanamu Santatamu Nivera Kula Dhanamu Santatamu Nivera Jivanamu. So, even though there are sangatis, the progression is slightly, the Kala Pramana completely changes the aesthetic that we hear. So again the gamakas are longer. You need to know how to fill that space. Dhanamu Santatamu Niveraji. The smooth flowing sangatis that you don't find in varnams or gitams. Niveraji Vanamu. So this is an example of a Chauka Kalakriti and Madhyama Kalakriti. Coming to the paramparas of ragas, that's a huge subject in itself. But since I've spoken so much about Bhairavi, I would like to mention that in the Dikshitar parampara, we should not sing the Chatushruti Devatam in the ascent. Today we are used to a certain contemporary connotation of the raga, but on the ascent the raga is supposed to take the Shuddha Devatam. So I will sing a small example from the Kriti Aryam Abhayambam. I'll just sing the Madhyama Kala passage for paucity of time. Manda smita vilasita mukhara vindam guru guhambika mukunda sodarim mahatripura sundarim anandalaharim Arya. So, and also in this particular composition, you find in the charanam, generally one lagu will carry at least 2 syllables. You find that there is an oscillation for an entire lagu here, and that too on the nishadam. So nishadam seems to have been a very, later on we see in the Padams also, it seems to be a very catchy point. So, Nandana Vanotpadana. Avlo elongated knee is a very rare feature, I thought. And sometimes raga is governed by the emotion of the sahitya also. The most poignant example I can think of is Drona Karna Duryodhana Dihara Draupadi Mana Samrakshana Kara Drona Karna. Drona Karna Duryodhana Dihara is very assertive, but when Draupadi Mana Samrakshana comes, Draupadi Mana, that Jaru leading back to the Madhyama is an astounding phrase. So the raga is again governed. We don't. This leads to that kind of creativity. So the emotion governs the flavor of the raga here. And like I said, the dhatu and the matu complement each other in expressing the emotion of the composition. So this is an example of that. Moving on, I would also like to talk about one in Begada, Tyagaraja Namaste, the Katyayani Pate Tyagaraja Namaste Namaste Gaurisa. Adu or maava or just or tottundu vara madri, but that we see in Varnam also. Gari gama gamari. Adu obviously we see it there. Here it's a little more subtle. Katyayani pate. So this phrasing is again very Katyayani pate Pashupate Simhasana pate Tyagara. And the Anupallavi of Srimata Shivamamanke, Shri Maha Ragni Vadana Shanke. The Nida Nisa is very obvious. Chit Pratibim Begalajita Shanke. The Nida Nisa is a very and also Chit Pratibim. So here again the Sampradaya comes into the fore, where the raga color is entirely determined by the raga's tenets in that Sampradaya. Again, Riti Gaulai, there are two different, the Dikshidhar Sampradaya does not carry the Chaturshri Devatam. That's a whole subject in itself. We'll just wind up with few points on Padams and javalis. Padam, the form of Padam is an extremely nuanced and intricate form. There are both the Padams and the javalis also have been extensively used in dance. So maybe the nuanced, because they needed that space for the abhinaya also, there is so much space in the form also. So you find that the oscillations, there are long drawn gamakas, the structure is little more relaxed, spaced out in the Padams. There was an interesting point that I read from Dr. Rita Rajan's article, the musical structure of the Padams, that the dhatu repeats many times in a Padam. Whereas in kritis of Dikshitar or Syama Shastri kritis like Nannu Brova Lalita, O Jagadamba, Saroja Dalanetri, the dhatu doesn't repeat itself. But in Tyagaraja kritis also, you find that the Anupallavi and Charan, last two lines of the Charanam, there is a repetitive melody. But again, there are exceptions, like every mata, there are a few more lines before the repetition comes. In Divyanama kritis, the structure is different. Pallavi, same melodies for the Charanams. So, and also there is a tradition of commencing with the Anupallavi in the Padam. I will just play a recording of Brindama singing Yala Padare, where So you find that, like she had mentioned, the Anupallavi structures in many padams. Of course, in Rama Rama Pranasakhi it is different, but like Moratopu, the beginning, it's a grand beginning. Then starting from the Madhyasthai, going all the way up to the Tarasthai is an exquisite exposition of the raga. So, and also there are some rare phrasings that you find in the padam also. In Yarukagilum Bayama, for instance, Bogam kidaitadindan yogam allavo penne. First Sangadip. Bogam kidaitadindan yogam allavo penne. Yarukagilum ne yarukagilum. It's a rare usage, and also I'll also play the Madhyama segment from Yarukagilum Bayama in the Charanam. So the Rajanga, and the Ma is a very charming segment in Begada. Again, I forgot to mention Nadopasana when I spoke about Begada, that Sangati, which thankfully we have retained till today. Vishwa Milla Nindi Vishwa Milla Rajanga. It's very beautiful segment in Begada. I would, and also like I said, Nado Pasana Cheshankara Narayana Vidhulu Velasiri Omana Sana Tantri Laya Swara Raga Vilolulu Tyaga Raja Vandyulu Swataltrulu Nado. ஆமாம் கொடுத்துருவோம். அந்த மாதிரிலாம் நிறைய. And also the form, they've taken some licenses. இதில் ஒரு you can indendu only first 2 lines where you hear a very obvious சாதாரண காந்தாரம். ஒன்று பாடுற அது வந்து காக்கரி நிஷாதம் ஒரு அது வெரி ரேர் ஃப்ரேசிங் ஆல்சோ தட் யூ சி. இந்த மாதிரி நிறையா இருக்குது. ராமராமல ராம அந்த நீயோட ராம and the elongated knee and the phrasing are very beautiful phrasings. And last, just wind up with the, also again the javali thing has been a very colorful form. There has been entry of notes from which actually do not probably belong to that raga in this form. Or kakali nishadam nariya kamasla we can see in javalis. Smarasundarangulila pratimadhyama paakrom. And நிறைய அந்த மாதிரி லாட் ஆஃப் எக்ஸாம்பிள்ஸ் லைக் ஃபார் ஒரு நேர மோர ஜர சோர மாரு பல்கரா நேர மோர ஜர சோர மாரு பல்கரா நேர மோர ஜர சோர மாரு பல்கரா இந்த மாதிரி பேட்டர்ன்ஸ் செந்தராயணி எந்த நேன்வேவினி பந்தமூலாடி தினி இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பேட்டர்ன்ஸ் ஒரு டான்ஸ்க்கோ சௌரியமாக இருக்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு மியூசிக்கல் ஸ்ட்ரக்சர். அண்ட் genre, I will wind up with Shri T. Vishwanathan singing the Janaro, but before that, I would like that to be the last audio that I play. In my Javali, there are a lot of Javalis are stung in different ஒரு சில ஆதித்தாளத்தில் அதே ஜாவளி ஆதித்தாளம் மிஸ்டர் சாப்பில் பாடுற வழக்கங்களாக இருக்குது. அதனால வந்து the raga எப்படி ஒரு it takes a again the spacing makes a lot of difference. So like this is a slightly more I can say a faster form than the Padam. And of course Marubarila, I just also have Ramnath Krishnan sir singing Marubari and the Kakri Nisha Marubari Talale, and the entry of the knee there, which if it's a Tyagaraja Swami Kritisna, we don't find the Kakli Nishadam at all. But whereas again later on we find compositions like Broche Vare Varura and all that, but still generally I think the Javali has given life to such unique phrasings. Before I wind up, I wrote the form of Tillana. I think it's just more like the Tillana kind of brings out a rhythmic feel of the raga. It kind of helps for us to sing Svarams, Tanam and all that. And also the Sahitya is minimal, but the Shollukattas and the Jati kind of keep it tight. So there is no room for or Sangatis or the raga to get extended. I'll just sing one rare Tillana of Begada, Tillana of Chinnaya, just the two phrases from that which I thought were rare. I'll sing the beginning. Nadir tumdir tadhim tanadhim tananadhira nadir tumdir tadhim tanadhim tananadhira nadir dir tani tumdir dir tani nanadhira. அது பல்லவி. அனுபல்லவி வந்து ததிமி கீட்டதும் தபதகரிகம் நான் ஆரம்பிக்கிறது. ததிமி கீட்டதும் தரிகிடதித்தும் தஜணு தகதித்தும் தகதித்தும் தரிகிடதித்தும் தகணக ஜணு தக. அகெயின் கமக வேகடா ரிக கம ப ஜென்ரலாக ஸ்வரம் பாடச்சையும் பாட மாட்டேன். பட் இந்த தில்லானால த பசான் ஐ சிங் ஜஸ்ட் த ஸ்வரம் த பசான் இரிச ககரிச நீ த பரி த பனி சாசான் ஒரு ஃப்ரேசிங் வருது. த பனி சாச பதம பகம ரிசா அப்படின்னு ரினி ததா ரினி ததா பம கத பம காரி கம பத நினி த பம பகம ரிசா. இந்த ம பகம ரிசா நிறையா யூ see in this Tillana. So rare phrasings, of course, we have heard so many Tillanas and each one has its color. But I just thought since we were discussing these ragas today, I mentioned this Tillana. We will just end with the clipping of Shri T. Vishwanathan singing Janaro E Mohamu. But before that, this is the notation. Oh, sorry. I don't know. No. Sorry. Today has been a technically challenging day. So I think when you see a raga's journey through the lens of compositions, it's fascinating. This is just a bird's eye view, and there is so much to think about. Each raga offers its own a lesson, and because it's the all-pervasive entity. So without the raga, nothing can be sung, and this inspires a lot of curiosity for students of music and for performers, and the realm is inexhaustible. You can just go on exploring. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to present this lecture demonstration. I would like to I don't want to talk after the music, so I'd like to thank a few people. First and foremost, my guru, Vidwan Shri R.K. Shri Ram Kumar, for being the inspiration that he is and for everything. And Vidushi Srimati R.S. Jayalakshmi Mami for actually sitting and looking at all these things. She spent so much time with me. She was as curious as I was to know what is new in each and every one of these compositional forms. I would also like to thank Vidushi Srimati Subhashini Parthasarthi. I just had a casual conversation with her to tell me about rare phrasings in Padams and javalis, and she actually has sent me voice notes with all, but unfortunately I didn't have the time to talk about each and every one of them. But I would like to thank her for everything, and my students Dhanush Anantaraman and Madhumita Doreswamy for helping me with the presentation. Thank you.
Janaroyi mogamu sagimpagale Janaroyi mogamu sagimpagale
Thank you. In this video, Sri Vishwanathan is accompanied by Ananta Krishnan sir on the violin and Sangeeta Kananidhi Trichy Shankaran on the mridangam. And Vidushi Anuradha Sriram is singing along with him this video.
Thank you, Amritha.
Thank
it was
you.
quite a tough task, I'm sure, to present all the forms in the duration, and it's like asking you to perform a concert showing everything inside. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members of the experts committee. Sangeetakala Acharya. The mic is passing rapidly. I can't make out. Sangeetakala Acharya Srimati Suguna Varadachari.
நல்ல presentation.
Thank you.
ரொம்ப நல்லா இருந்தது.
Thank you, Mami.
இந்த நாட்டுக்குறிஞ்சியில் கம்மரிசா இருக்கு, அதை அந்த பிரயோகம் வந்து நிறையா வர்ணத்துலேயும் இருக்குது. இன்ஃபேக்ட் மாயம்மா ஷியாமா சாஸ்திரியோட கிருத்தியில் அந்த சிட்டஸ்வரத்தில்
எனக்கு அந்த கிருத்தி பாடம் இல்லை மாமி, சாரி, சிட்டஸ்வரம் தெரியாது.
சிட்டஸ்வரம் கிருத்தியில வர்ணம் நிறையா, வர்ணத்தில் நிறையா வந்து கம்மரிசான்னு நிறையா வருது. அதை நம்ம இன்னைக்கு ப்ரெசன்ட் டேல we are not using that phrase இல்லையா? ஆக்சுவலாக
அதே மாதிரி ஒரு வந்து மகப்பா கூட இருக்கு. இந்த மிஸ்டர் சாப் வரணும் ஒன்று இருக்கு. இதில் மிஸ்டர் சாப் வரணும். சரக சாட்சி சாமி நீ தோடி இவே மாறு நீவை. இப்படி ஒரு பிரயோகம் இருக்குது. அதில் வந்து இன்ஃபேக்ட் இந்த வரணில் வந்து பா வந்தாலும் ஃபுல்லாக வந்து சரிகமா தனிசான் தான் இருக்கும்.
ஆமாம்,
ஸ்வரத்துலையும் அப்படி ஒரு பிரயோகம் இருக்குது.
இல்லை நிறையா வந்து கமதனிசா நிறையா இருந்திருக்கு.
இந்த மாகாப்பா கொஞ்சம் அன்யூஷுவலாக இருந்து பஞ்சமத்தை அப்படி ஹைலைட் பண்ணி காமிக்கிறது.
கமதனிசா பிரயோகம் நிறைய இடத்துல இருக்குது.
இன்னும் அதை நம்ம தொடாமல் இருக்கும்.
அப்போ திருப்பதி நாராயணசாமி கீர்த்தனை பராக்கேல சார், அதில் வந்து நிறைய கமதனிசா இருக்குது. இப்போ வந்து ப்ரெசென்டே நம்ம we are using கம நீதனிசா மனிதனிசான்னு
இல்லை, வேறு சுப்பராம் தீட்சிதரோட அந்த கீர்த்தனை திரிபுர சுந்தரின்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது. அதில் நிறைய ஃப்ரேசஸ் நாட்டக்குறிஞ்சிக்கு இன்றைக்கி நம்ம ஒத்துக்க மாட்டோங்கிற மாதிரி ஃப்ரேஸ் நம்ம ஒத்துக்க மாட்டோம்ல பண்ணியிருக்கேன்.
அதே மாதிரி மேம் இந்த தாரி சரிலாம் பாட்டு பூர்ணச்சந்திரிகா அது இதில் இருக்குது, சங்கர் அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய ராகங்களில் ஆக்சுவலி வர்ணத்தில் நிறையவே ரேர் ஃப்ரேசிங்ஸ் இருக்குது. ஆல்சோ நம்ம வர்ணம்னு பார்த்தோன்னா நிறையா டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ராகாஸ் ஹேவ் டிஃப்ரெண்ட் கைண்ட் ஆஃப்.
இப்போ பாடச்ச ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணுறச்ச சிலது துணித்து நமக்கு வந்து மெலடி கேட்கறச்ச. இப்போ ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் பேகடல பனிசான்னு
ஆமாம், அந்த தில்லானா
சவுண்ட்ஸ் லைக் பரிசா. அது உன்னிச்சு கேட்டாதான்
பனிசாவே இருக்கு
பனிசான் நீ பாடு
பரிசா. ஓ ஓகேவியா.
அதுக்கு மேபி நாம் வந்து இப்போ பரிசான்னு கேட்டு கேட்டு அதில் காலையில் அந்த மாதிரி விழறதோ இல்லையோ, அந்த மாதிரி சில மெலடிலாம் வந்து இந்த மாதிரி மாறுறதுக்கு சான்ஸ் இருக்குன்னு என்னோட அபிப்பிராயம்.
கண்டிப்பாக
இல்லையா? இருந்ததுன்னா கூட கேட்டு கேட்டு வந்து நம்ம வந்து அது ப்ரெசென்ட் பண்ணுறச்ச ஒவ்வொருத்தர சாரீரத்தில் பனிசாங்கிறது பரிசான்னு கேட்டிருக்கேன்.
ஆக்சுவலி இதை சுபாஷினி அக்கா மேட் பாயிண்ட். நம்ம அந்த சேஞ்சஸ்லாம் நம்ம அந்த த நியூ நோட்ஸ் தட் கம் இன் அதை வந்து ஒரிஜினல் ஸ்ட்ரக்சர்லேயே இன்டெண்டடா இல்லைன்னா பாடுறவா ஒரு லிபர்ட்டி எடுத்துன்னு பாடினாலா அந்த சுச்சுவேஷனுக்கு ஒரு எஸ்பெஷலி ஜாவலி இல்லைனா வி டோன்ட் நோ. பிகாஸ் டான்ஸுக்கு அது ஒரு பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் அபிநயால இட் மைட் ஹவ் பீன் ரிக்வயர்ட் ஒரு அந்த மாதிரி என்ட்ரி வந்து தான் வி டோன்ட் நோ.
அதே மாதிரி இந்த சுருட்டி பதம் இந்தந்து வச்சுக்கிறா ஜெயமா பாடம் எங்களுக்கு இங்கே அகாடமியில் இந்தந்து வச்சித்திராதான் பாடம். இந்த இடத்துல கரிசா வரும்.
அதே கரிசா வந்து உங்களுக்கு சுப்பராம தீட்சிதோட சுரட்டி பார்த்தீங்கன்னா நோட்டேஷனில் சாதாரண காந்தாரம்
தான்.
இன்ஃபேக்ட் நம்ம அதை மாரிசான்னு மாற்றி பாடிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
இல்லைங்க, சாதாரண காந்தாரம்
சாதாரண இருக்கு. ரெண்டு கீர்த்தனையும் இருக்கு.
கமாஸ் பதவர்ணம் போட்டாலே
அதுலயும் மார்க்கிங் இருக்கு. சாதாரண காந்தாரம் மார்க்கிங்ஸ்லாம்
மார்க் இருக்கு. சாதாரண காந்தாரம் மார்க் இருக்கு. ஆமா,
வர்ணங்களை நிறைய பார்க்குறோம். எனக்கு வந்து சந்தேகம் அந்த மேலே எல்லாம் இல்லை, பிரமிப்பு தான் எனக்கு. எப்படி அடுத்து இப்படி பாடினேன்னு பிரமிச்சு பார்த்துட்டு இருந்தேன். ஹோல் ப்ரோக்ராம் ஒரு மேல் காலத்திலே போச்சு. கடன்னு அது ரொம்ப பிரமிப்பாக இருந்தது. இதெல்லாம் தனித்தனியாக என்ஜாய் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். ஆனால் சேர்த்து பார்க்கறதுங்கிறத யோசிச்சு பார்த்ததில்லை.
வேறு வழி இல்லை.
ஆமாம், டைம் வேறு இருந்தாலும் வரணும், செய்யணுமே. அதை டைம் இருந்தால் கூட செய்யணும். இன்னொன்று தனித்தனியாக அதெல்லாம் என்ஜாய் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். சேர்த்து பார்க்கும்போது ஓ இப்படிலாம் இருக்கான்னு எனக்கு என்ன தோணித்துன்னா, இதனோட ஆடியோ போடுவேன் இல்லையா நீங்கள், அது திருப்பி 2 தினம் கேட்கணும்னு தோணித்து எனக்கு. ஏன்னா இதை வந்து அவ்வளோ இன்ஃபர்மேஷன் சொல்லிகிட்டே போனேன். தனித்தனியாக என்ஜாய் பண்ணதை சேர்த்து என்ஜாய் பண்ணும்போது எப்படி இருக்கும்னு தோணித்து இருக்குது. தேங்க்யூ. ஒரே ஒரு ராகத்தை எடுத்துன்னு இப்படி செஞ்சால் கூட ரொம்ப அழகாக இருக்கும்னு தோணித்து எனக்கு.
நான் முதல்ல அதான் ஐடியா இருந்தது. பட் நிறைய எக்ஸாம்பிள்ஸ் பைரவியில் ஒரு தில்லானா என்னால் கண்டுபிடிக்க முடியல. ஸோ பேகடாவில் ஒரு கீதம்னு போட்டிருக்கு, பட் அது ஒரு ஒரு சப்ஸ்டான்ஷியல் பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் ரெஃபரன்ஸாக என்னால் சொல்ல முடியல. பட் அதெல்லாம் இவ்வளோ அதனால் கொஞ்சம் வேறு எக்ஸாம்பிள்ஸ் காமிச்சா
இல்லை இது அழகாக தான் இருந்தது. இது ஒன்றும் இதுக்கு ஒன்றும் சொல்லலை, அப்படி ஒன்று பண்ணி பார்க்கலாமேன்னு தோணுது.
டெஃபினட்டாக
ஒரு ஒரு ஆஃப்டர் தாட்டாக தோணித்து ஒரு ராகத்தை எடுத்து பண்ணால் கூட
Actually, she did it with L. Ramakrishnan around 3-4 years ago.
எதுக்குள்ள
காம்போஜியை மட்டும் எடுத்துட்டு she and L. Ramakrishnan, they both did that. அதே மாதிரி பண்ணினா across composition forms எதுக்குள்ள காம்போஜி they did.
இல்லை இப்படி பண்ணது தான் ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமாக இருந்தது. நிறைய அங்கே நான் சொல்ல மாதிரி திருப்பி ஒன்றா என்ஜாய் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். சேர்த்து பார்க்கும்போது இது ஒரு அழகாக தான் இருந்தது. தேங்க்யூ, ரொம்ப அழகான ப்ரோக்ராம்.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Members of the experts committee, executive committee, anybody here? Dr. Sumati Meenakshi Krishnan.
Very beautiful, Amritha, as always.
Thank you.
I just have one small point to make. This is more for others to know. இது ஜண்டேனா 2 தான் இருக்கணுங்கிறது இல்லை. ஸோ ஈவன் 3 கேன் பி ஜண்டே, ஈவன் 4 கேன் பி ஜண்டே. பேசிக்கலி ரெப்படிஷன் ஆஃப் த நோட்ஸ் தான் ஜண்டே. ஸோ 2ன்னு எடுத்துட்டு விட வேண்டாம். அதுக்கு தான் ஜஸ்ட் a small. Thank you. பட் இல்லை ஜண்டை வரிசையிலேயே பார்த்தேன்னா 3 எல்லாம் இருக்குது, அது 2 இல்லை.
Members of the audience, any questions? I see a hand there. He's standing up, so you can take the mic there. That's right. Bharat? Angapa? Okay, mic Angarka. Yeah.
Hi, Akka. When you mentioned Varnams, you said that many of the phrases we lose when we sing it in higher speeds, especially the charanam. Not lose the phrases, lose the aesthetic sense of the...
I didn't say we lose the aesthetic sense of it. I just said that the aesthetic sound, maybe the sound of what we sing differs because of the Kala Pramanam. For instance, the same thing. Maga ma pada ma da pa ma ga ri ga ma pa sa pa ma ga ri pa ma ga ri sa ni da pa ri sa ni ga ri sa ma ga ri pa ma ga da pa. இது வந்து நம்ம it sounds very obvious here, this gadapa, but when I sing it fast you would have not noticed it at all. ri pa ma ga da pa sa ni da ri sa ma ga ri sa ri ni ri sa pa da ma da pa ga ma ri ga ma pa ga ma ga ma pa da ma da pa ma ga ri ga ma pa sa pa ma ga ri pa ma ga ri sa ni da pa ri sa ni ga ri sa ma ga ri pa ma ga da pa sa ni da ri sa. இந்த கதாப்பா வந்து ஒரு ஆடா இல்லை, பட் if you want to look at it according to Kramam or whatever, but it changes.
Right.
Rather, I find that when you eschew certain, you can't sing it with all the anuswarams because it doesn't give you room for it.
Okay, thank you. And just
Thank
one
you.
more...
No, supplementary questions
Not
and
a question,
parliamentary
just
procedures.
a remark that...
Later,
Okay,
because
fine.
there are so many others waiting.
Right,
I think we
okay.
have to give them turn also. There's a gentleman here who's put up his hand. Bharat, give him the mic, please.
Thank you so much. Among your many deep insights, you refer to javali being very colorful. You also refer to how in one raga there is Western influence. So I am inspired to ask you, what has been the dynamics of border crossing across traditions? And what is the life of the ragas themselves?
That's actually a very interesting question. Across traditions, as for Western influence, we see it in Dikshitars, the Notiswarams. They're all banned tunes which have been given Sanskrita lyrics. Kamalasana Vandita Padabje Kamaniya Karodaya Samraje. This is a Western tune called Gallopede. You can Google it up. And as for folk traditions, across the border, I would... we have taken a lot from folk traditions. Today we sing the Kavadi Chinda. There are a lot of ragas which have had history in folk and which have been taken, which have been given a beautiful form in our music. So I think we have been also, like for instance, Hindustani music had its influence. You find a lot of ragas that we have taken, we have adapted to our form of music today. So I think we have taken from other forms of music, and but we've given it a Carnatic flavor, I do think. This Carnatic sound has retained intact, or should retain intact, maybe. That's more like how it should be.
Yes, please.
Thank you for an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Just a humble question, just as an audience for my own understanding. You beautifully showcased that some compositions based on the meaning of the sahitya, the tune changes. So that made me conceive this question. So for a composer, when they sit down to compose, what takes importance? Is it the raga and the tune for the raga? Does that come first, or the sahityam? Does it change from like the type of composition? For example, like for Varnam, maybe it's the notes and the swaras, and then the Kriti is different, or is it even different for a given composer from composition to composition?
I think if we are talking about a Vagyakara, the sahityam and the dhatu and the matu come together. So it's not like they write the lyrics and they compose the tune for it later. So when it comes to a Vagyakara, it all comes together. That's why I think the example that I said, for instance, even in Tyagaraja Swami Kriti, Bala Kanakamaya, you're describing Rama in all his splendor. When that happens, Bala Kanakamaya Chela Sujana Paripala Kanakamaya Chela Sujana Paripala Shri Rama Lola Paripala Shri Rama Lola Vidhrita Sharajala Shobhada Karuna Lavala Ghana Nila Navyavanamali Kavarana Yelani Dayaradu. So the tune has to have come with it, because Yelani Dayaradu abdin kache Radu or pleading melody irukanga. Also Ra Devadi Deva. You're inviting somebody to your house, you have to be nice. So again, all this while it was very bright, but then the color of the tonality or the aesthetic changes there. So it should have come together. But if you're tuning compositions, let's say if it's not a Vagyakara, definitely it's each one's perspective, definitely. But the lyric, you need to look at the lyrics and decide what raga will suit it. Sometimes a raga can suit multiple emotions also. So
can I just add?
Yeah, sure.
There is a brilliant concert recording of M.M. Dandapani Desikar, where he has sung Tunbam Nergail in Desh. And prior to that, he starts off saying, "Ida Atanala Padina eppadi irukum, appa adike varan nenichirupanga, the koyanda odi poidum." And he demonstrates it also. So I think that shows exactly. Okay. If we are done with the questions, I'd like to. Oh, there is one more. Last question, Vishnudev. Yes, please. Vidwan Vishnudev.
A lovely presentation.
Thank you.
I'll make it quick. In the Begadal, இப்போ நம்ம நிறைய கேட்குற phrase சகபமானி அதுக்கெல்லாம் இந்த ரெஃபரன்சஸ் இருக்கா இல்ல இட்ஸ் ஜஸ்ட் a beautiful phrase that came in?
இதுல எதுமே அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு ரெஃபரன்ஸ்னு பார்க்கல for that phrase. Actually I looked for it, at least in the varnams or the kritis that I saw or I observed in Begada.
இல்ல நிச்சயமா பாடதான் போறேன், பட் தெரிஞ்சுக்க.
So there is no particular reference to that phrase that I have noticed. If there are any other
அதுக்கெல்லாம்
அதுவும் இல்ல.
Thank you. I now hand over the mic to Sangeeta Kalani, the designate Vidwan Shri T.M. Krishna, for his song.
Well, I first like to congratulate Amritha Murali for a fabulous presentation. It's not easy to cover so many compositional forms and show us glimpses. And I think she did wonderfully and made a connection between each, which was, I think, most important. They were not in silos. Because also to see how a raga moves between compositions. So thank you for doing that. just a few thoughts that came out of your presentation. One was that, of course, I mean, before you come to even Varnam, like some phrases in the Gitam, for example, you Kamala Jatala Vimala Sunayana Karivarada Karuna Ambuje Da 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 ga 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 in Kalyan used to go to Pakamato. That almost doesn't, if I sing that, nobody will think I'm singing even Kalyani. You know, so it also there is some amount of a timeline here. Because the Kirtana form has in fact repeated itself with time in terms of 200, 300 years, it has constantly, and fortunately or unfortunately, we also sing it on stage, there has been this constant churn. In a way, Gitams have remained kind of partly fossilized.
Yeah.
Right? So, in a way, they are a reference point to say, okay, yedi irundirukku, though it may not reflect. So, a raga in a compositional form also tells us a time movement. It is not just a question of ragam, where a formula. We also get a time. I think this is why, for example, I have to refer to Svarajatis. Unfortunately, people keep on saying why I refer to him. He is the only man who has given us a magnus opus in the last 100 years that gives us 200 years of written of understanding music. You will see kind of that timeline moving in the way he formats every ragam. So from a Gita or a Prabandha, he'll come to Varnam, Kirtanam, and then finally he'll end with Sanchari, which is his own interpretation of what he's consumed. So there's a timeline. So compositional forms are also timestamps. So looking at historically, I think it's important for us to remember that time. The other thing, one thing that you kept saying, which is, highlighted itself brilliantly in today's lecture, is that Madhyama of Bhairavi. We never reconcile on a Ma today. நமக்கு மா போனோன்னா அந்த ரெண்டு சங்கதி பாட்டு பார்க்க ஓடி போயிடும். கொஞ்சம் சுற்றி போடுறியா, ஒரு கட்டை போடும், ஒன்றரை வேண்டாம், நாளைக்கு கச்சேரி பண்ணணும். அங்கே we are uncomfortable actually. அவ்வளோதான். அதுக்கப்புறம் we want to reconcile. It's very interesting. But in the compositions, the ma comes again and again as a long note, not even as ma. And if you think of the Swarajati, the most magical swaram is ma. And again he hits ma again and again and again.
Yes.
Ma pani da ma pa da pa ma gari ga ma pa ga ma pa ga. So we've also changed the color of the raga by not noticing the composition. So if I was going to sing today a full Bhairavi around ma, there's a possibility. Yeah. All I need to do is just listen to these compositions 5 times. But
actually the only exception I saw, the charanam starting was drona charanura vera ellame maalada.
So this ma and this cuts across compositions interestingly.
But he comes back to the ma, then manikya though. Somewhere it comes in.
Ma, what has happened to the ma? Now this also segues into the Varja Prayoga and Bhairavi in the descent. So again, when you take the pa out, ma becomes a more prominent feature in that phrase, right? So it's a fascinating. But this also, sorry, I'm connecting many things. Whether, like we say, a raga in different compositional form, if I was going to even go further deeper, are there also certain gamakas for certain kala pramanas? We don't think in that manner today. இப்போ எல்லா கமக்கத்தையும் எல்லா கரமும் பாடணும் கஷ்டம். இப்போ when you yourself sing that Bhairavi அந்த நீ பத நீ சரி கம கரி சனி தபமா, just sing it little slower than what you sang it. ஓ ஒருஷத்திலே பாடு. சரி வானா பத நீ சரி கம கரி சனி தபமா கரி சனி தப மா பத நீ சரி கம நீ சரி கம பத ப மணி தம க. ஒரு கை பாடணும்னா இவ்வளவு ஸ்பேஸ் தேவை. ஒரு கை இஸ் பேசிக்கலி ஒரு ஸ்வரத்துல இருந்து you hit the top note above and come to one note below. மணிதமா போன அது மியூட்டா தான் பாட முடியும். இதுல இந்த ரீனிதமா ஸ்டஃபர், மணிதமா ரீனிதமா ஜம்ப் வந்து ரொம்ப நீ இங்க இருக்கு. அங்க ஒருக்கே பாடணும் எப்படி பாட போறேன்னா நீ கரி நீ த பாடணும். So this other thing for us to think about is what about Gamaka and Kala Pramana? So should our measure of what Kala Pramana we should sing a composition, also think context, be conscious of what are the Gamakas in that Raga, in that Kala Pramana, Yosikkunumanu or question definitely your lecture makes us think. Even in Kampitam you find it. You can't sing a full, I mean the Kampitam we sing today, you can't sing it. So Kala Pramanam and Gamaka, I have a request for you. And the Pada Swaram Padi, Punyavada. Should they do the
I actually had I wanted to sing it in both and show whether it was.
I think it will be prettier with Shuddha Devada. Because
I also thought.
Pada adikarcha and the Devada is not nikkave maatengirudhu.
அது ரொம்ப ஆடா
கேட்கறதுக்கு. கரெக்ட்டா மாமி? அம்மா அது தா வந்து ஏதோ எங்கயோ தப்பா இருக்கிற மாதிரி ஃபீலிங் வருது.
Dada pama pama gamama magari ga gari sariri risani sa sani dani sa gari gama padama pada dani sani da pama pada gari ni da pama pada dani sa pada pama pada dari sani da pama gama pada pada ni sari Gari sani dapa gari sari gamma.
Actually, though you are singing Shuddha Devatam, கேக்கறச்ச பைரவி சவுண்ட் நமக்கு வருது. when you pada அப்படினா அப்படி ஒரு ஃபீலிங் வருது. Fabulous. Sorry. Just one more point, I'm missing it somewhere. This other thing is also something to think about is எல்லா ராகத்திலையும் எல்லா compositional form compose பண்ணலாமா? Next question, right? For example, இப்போ தான வரத்தை ஒரு சிக்கல் வருது. தான வர்ணம் தானம் பாடுற கனெக்ஷனும் கன டீடைல்ஸ் போகாம கன மார்க்கா டீடைல்ஸ் போகாம இந்த கனெக்ஷன் இப்போ கனதே even if you look at Shaji, I think one of the most beautiful classifications of ragas is by him, Ghananaya Deshya. Just aesthetic classifications of music. So Ghanaragathila da varnam irukonu seems to be some connection. Bhairavi was not a Ghanaraga. So now you are like, oh, and Magnus Opus chinna varnal ivla persa onu pannittu poitar. So then what is the connection? We have to think about whether varna, for example, where the or that every syllable has to be sound, thana varna to be specific. இப்போ அதில் வந்து சில ராகத்தில் ஒரு நயமாக இருக்கிற ராகத்தில் ஒரு தான வர்ணம் பண்ணால் what are we doing to the raga and what are we doing to the form? This is I think something that needs a little more thought, because இன்னைக்கு we don't think in this manner. எல்லா ராகம் இருக்கு, ஃபார்ம் இருக்கு, என்ன பண்ணுறேன், தில்லானமும் பண்ணுறேன், பதமும் பண்ணுறேன், ஜாவலியும் பண்ணுறேன், கீர்த்தனம் பண்ணுறேன். Is it necessary? You can. Everybody has the skill set, you can. But is it necessary? I want to say one thing. I know some people may say, enna sir, ellathukkum rules solra, idu pannakoodadunu solra. I don't think that's the way to look at it. Yesterday there was a friend of mine who's a Supreme Court lawyer. I know Prasanna is here today. He was here yesterday and he said something very interesting. Walking out, and he said, you know, the discussions yesterday on Lakshana and Lakshya, was very similar to discussions that happen in law. And I said, so how? And he said, we always debate this notion of practice, which is Lakshya. And for Lakshana, we used to use Lakshana, he didn't say a rule. He said duty. And that was very interesting. So the question we ask is, what is our duty towards the form? What is our duty towards the raga? What is our duty towards Carnatic music? If we change the notion of what Lakshana is, then maybe we'll think of this not as a restriction, but a greater understanding of form and greater understanding and that insight. And I just thought that kind of gave me a very interesting thought on what do we do, for example. You know, we don't think of it in that manner. So I think that was fascinating. Also, I think we have to concede that the overemphasis on the kirtana has also limited our perception of manodharma. So if I was singing Naraval for a varnam, why can't I sing? What happens? By the way, I am not the person. Ralapalli Antakrishna Sharma, in his presidential address at the Music Academy, asked this question. He said, Varno ye modalla parno. Why can't we sing Manodharma for a varnam? It is in his recorded speech. You can please read the journal at the academy. So what have we done? So will Manodharma itself have facets that we didn't know exist? if you're going to say, what do we do when we sing ragam for a varnam? Can we sing ragam? அது வேற டெக்ஸ்டரில் இருக்குமா? அதில் தானம் பாடணும்னா இந்த ஸ்ட்ரக்சரோட இந்த ஏஸ்திக் ஸ்ட்ரக்சரோட தானம் பாடணும் ரொம்ப கஷ்டம். ஸோ தென் த நெரவல் சேஞ்சஸ். ஸோ தட் இஸ் ஆல்சோ சம்திங் that I think is for all of us to think about. I have sung it, but that's a different issue. I mean, yeah, I mean, when I first, because you asked, I'm saying, when I first thought of this idea of singing Neraval for Kanakangi Varnam, Bhairavi Varnam, I struggled a lot because I realized நான் பாடுறதுக்கும் வரதுக்கும் சம்பந்தமே கிடையாது. நான் வந்து பாலகோபாலுக்கு நேரவல் பாடுற மாதிரி பாடின்னு இருக்கேன். First of all, syllabic length. My God, இங்க இருக்குன்னா அங்க பக்கத்து வீட்டில் இருக்கு அடுத்த syllable.
You can never say the words.
Okay, now what do you do? And so it took me a few months to kind of unlearn Neraval singing of Kirtanam and say, okay, if I was going to be as close, not completely, I have to start articulating as many syllables as possible. At the same time, be able to move to some extent in my Manodharma. It was a very difficult exercise. Melkala Neraval kuda அந்த சிலபிள் ரூல் ஒரு மாதிரி நம்ம ப்ராக்டிஸ் பண்ணிக்கணும்னா பாடிடலாம். பட் கீழ்காலம் நெரவல் வாஸ் வெரி டிஃபிகல்ட் டு டூ, வெரி வெரி ஹார்ட் டு டூ. இட் டுக் அ ஃபியூ மந்த்ஸ் ஃபார் மீ டு கெட் அ ஹோல்ட் ஆஃப் ஹவு டு சிங் நெரவல் ஃபார் அ வர்ணம். It's a different technique. It's actually learning something new. It is not like learning Neraval again. It's like learn Neraval again. And so it is not easy, but I think it is something that opens a scope that we have not yet thought about. I think so. Finally, this Veena Dhanamaloda recording. If you don't mind, can you put that notation and play the recording?
Yes.
Just want to point to something. Yeah, just play the recording, and if musicians can just follow the notation and hear what she's actually playing.
Previous line வருது. ஆனா அந்த ஸ்லைடு போனா இது வருது.
அங்க வருவா? So why I brought this is there's also the idea of the intention of a notation. இப்போ நம்மளே கிளாஸ் ரூமில் வந்து நோட்டேஷன் எழுதும்போது சும்மா ஒரு சில இடம் தான் எழுதிப்போம், டெஃபினட்டாக மறப்போம் தெரிஞ்ச இடம் தான் எழுதிப்போம். Now the intention of the notation is for me to understand. Then there could be an intention of notation for me to archive my school of thought. Subramanian Dikshithar maybe in that category in some extent. Then you have a notation to say, I want to publish this so other people can sing it or play it. The nature of the notation changes. So I'm saying it's very interesting to see that this is the nature of notation, that this is the intention of the notation, but what happens to the notation? So you have the individual reinterpreting that with an aesthetic that she, in this case, is used to. So even when you see notations, there is this fluidity that we have to some way understand why is that person writing that notation, to try and see how to read the notation. எல்லா நோட்டேஷனும் சேம் இல்லை. அவள் எதுக்கு எழுதியிருக்கான்னு யோசிச்சாதான் அந்த நோட்டேஷன் எப்படி படிக்க முடியும்னு நம்மளுக்கு தெரியணும். ஸோ ஐ ஜஸ்ட் வாண்ட் டு மேக் தட் பாயிண்ட். தேங்க்யூ வெரி மச்.
Thank you, Krishna. Tomorrow, 25th December, Christmas Day, we have the first lecture demonstration.
No, 1 second. I have to do something before I... Please, stay for 2 minutes. 1 second. Yesterday, I was very rightly hauled up by Sangeeta Kala Acharya Suguna Varadachari. So I'm going to correct it today. Mami, you want to tell? Correct solidrena. No, I meant it. I failed in my duty, and she is right, in not every day recognizing the singers who sang the prayer. And I would like all of you to join me to acknowledge them and appreciate them. And yesterday's Kirtanam was, and every Kirtanam is specifically chosen in relation with the subject matter of the day. And yesterday, Dadapandi Desikara's Kirtanam was presented, and thanks Suguna Mami very much. And yesterday, Padnada Kamakshi, and today was Bharadwaj. Again, absolutely apt for the Mohiniyattam, the Kathakali presentation. So thank you very much.
Tomorrow's lecture demonstrations will be presided over by Sangeeta Kalanidhi Srimati Bombay Jayashree Ramnath, as the Kalanidhi designate has his concert in the morning in the main hall. The first lecture demonstration, Sangeeta Kalanidhi Dr. S. Soumya, Understanding a Raga through Interpretations of Sangeeta Kalanidhi's Srimati T. Brinda and Dr. S. Ramanathan. The second lecture demonstration, Sangeeta Kala Acharya Dr. R. S. Jayalakshmi, Notations for Niraval by Sangeeta Kalanidhi Kalide Kurichi Vedanta Bhagavatar. I look forward to seeing you all here tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye for now.